Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Spring is here and I got really inspired to share with you, finally, a spring bridal makeup look. In case you can't tell by this look right here, if you are getting married or if you just want inspiration for your future wedding, if you plan on being a spring bride, I have a beautiful, flawless look for you that will last your entire wedding day. So if you want to see how to get this beautiful spring bridal makeup look, then keep watching. Okay, let's jump right into this spring bridal makeup look. You can't do a bridal makeup look without good skin prep. So I have included skin prep for this makeup look, and you all might not be surprised with some of the products I'm going to feature. Starting with this one, I talk about all the time. I mean, at least you know that I genuinely love this product and I go through bottles and bottles of this. It's the NATURIUM BHA liquid exfoliant. I always recommend a liquid exfoliant. Now, you don't have to use a liquid exfoliator on your wedding day if you have sensitive skin, so just a forewarning, but I would recommend using one leading up to your wedding day because the smoothness that you will achieve with using a liquid exfoliator, especially one that's more on the gentle side like the NATURIUM BHA. I have some other favorites too that I talk about a lot on my channel. This one has just been one of my go-tos and one of my favorites for a long time now. So this is one of my absolute must-have steps, not just for brides, for anyone in general. Anyone that sits in my chair gets some form of liquid exfoliating going on before I do their actual moisturizers and serums and stuff like that. So we are going to liquid exfoliate all areas of the skin for a nice, smooth, but even more importantly, balanced skin before we go in with makeup. It's all about balance. You want to balance out your skin before you go in with your makeup products. I even run this over my lips because it's just a gentle liquid exfoliant and it's good to get the roughness off your lips just like that. Okay, we're gonna hop immediately into a skin serum. Something that's gonna plump our skin, something that's gonna fill in those fine lines and anything like that. It's gonna give my skin an instant, like I said, plump effect. Plumping peptide serum. It's from Make. This is a newer product that I recently was gifted from the brand. I love Make. I know the owners of the brand. I think they're a fantastic brand. Now, it doesn't have to be this product, but this type of step where it's like a hydrating serum is absolutely crucial as an in-between. So in between like your exfoliators, like your liquid exfoliator that I just used, and in between your actual moisturizer, this is a must-have prep step. So you don't want to just follow your toner, whatever toner you're using, but if you're using like a liquid exfoliant like I just showed, you never want to just follow that with a moisturizer and call it good. You want to have that in-between layer for deep hydration and deep skin plumping in between. Like this is a must-have step for, again, not just my brides, or not just a bridal makeup look, but for any makeup look. Any makeup look. I always get this on my hands too. When I'm working with clients, if I have extra like left over, I'll bring it all the way down their neck. I'll bring it down their chest, and it is so soothing. It is so, so soothing. So that's gonna absorb really, really quickly. So now we're gonna jump into the actual last product from our skincare, and this is a fantastic sunscreen if you are going to be out in the elements, if you're gonna have a long day, if you're a bride-to-be, and if you just want to have a sunscreen on that's going to protect your skin really, really well. This is the Biore UV Watery Essence SPF 50 PA+++. This is a watery, easy to use, great for all skin types, especially oily SPF. This is like the one to use if you're going to be wearing an SPF, which in my opinion is completely optional. I've talked about this in a previous video. I think that you do not need to wear an SPF on your wedding day, but I thought I would include it in this step because I know I got a lot of questions regarding this topic and what I would recommend to my brides that were choosing, like electing to wear sunscreen on their wedding day. Now, like I said in that video, in case you caught it, I'll link it here too in the description box if you missed it. But it was a do's and don'ts for brides. So tons of tips, tons of helpful information. If you are a bride or if you know a bride coming up, that video is filled to the brim with tons and tons of tips. So I wanted to include this in this video, this step, as a great, great option to look into if you want to use a sunscreen. Now for lip prep is just as important on your wedding day as your skin prep. I love a good, thick, juicy, very, very intense moisturizer. This is the Laneige Sleep Mask. This is a thick one. Of course, you can use it at night. That's what it's marketed for, but I love this as a lip prep for all of my clients, not just brides, all of my clients. So we're gonna let that soak in while we get to the rest of this makeup. Now that my skin is fully prepped, including my lips, we can get into the eye makeup. And just a little like warning. Normally, if I were doing a bride right now, this is actually when I would place some eye patches underneath my bride's eyes. This allows for like depuffing, for calming, for extra hydration. and also just protects this general area of your eye while you're doing eye makeup. I'm not going to waste them on myself because I'm not actually a bride and those things are very expensive, but I will include them in the links in the description box so you can check them out. The ones I recommend are fantastic. So let's get into the eye prep, and we're gonna keep it true to what I normally do, which is prepping the eyes with a concealer. I love using concealers as eye prep. So I'm using my Angie Hot Flashy A505 brush. I'm gonna run this underneath my brows and we're gonna get this party started. And by party, I mean the eye makeup. The eye makeup is gonna be the party, trust me. So running this under my brows, it just helps to clean up my brow shape and naturally define them a bit more. Even before I even go in with more product, my brows are just barely tinted with a little bit of e.l.f. brow wow, but we'll be finishing these brows and truly fine-tuning them on camera for this tutorial. So I just have a teeny bit of product in them. Now let me actually go in with a little bit more. I like to start out with a brush first, then I'll go in with more product and my N16 brush. This brush is ideal for any kind of eyelid prep, like eyelid primers, putting concealer on your eyelids, powdering your eyelids, blending out overall cream colors onto your eyelids. So I like to start in a tapping motion. Then you could use the lighter ends, like the longer tips of the brush, to just buff out any excess product. Let's do the same thing on this side. Let's get this on first and then we'll clean up just underneath the brow. Now when I'm doing a bridal makeup look, or any kind of makeup look, eye makeup look specifically, that I want to have just look absolutely pristine, I like to start out with a very cleaned up and very brightened eyelid. And that way you really have like the best blank canvas to create your eyeshadow look. So starting with, you know, a lighter concealer all over the eyelid, all over, just gives you this beautiful blank canvas to really start your eye makeup look. So this is something I always do. And again, this is something I do when I have those eye patches on my clients. This is the time that I start to build the eye makeup, and this is the first step for that. So taking a little more concealer, just really covering up any discoloration and bringing it out a touch more. I'm gonna switch back to my N16 and really get this all over. You wanna put this anywhere you think you're gonna apply eyeshadow. So for me, I like to pull out my eyeshadow looks. And for this bridal look, this spring bridal look, I wanna pull out my eyes. I wanna make them big and beautiful and more open. So I'm not just gonna focus on my actual eyelid, I'm gonna really blow out the shadow on either ends. So now that we have that on, we're gonna switch to a true eyeshadow base. I like to layer this on top of a concealer, something that has more coverage and more pigment, because this actually, it looks like it's gonna have a lot of coverage, but it doesn't. It's gonna be a little bit more on the sheer side. So starting out with that base underneath of concealer, we put this on top as like more of a security blanket. It's not actually like that necessary, but it's good for like slipping. So I want to make sure I have a nice even blank canvas all over my eyelids, and then I'm putting that extra layer of primer on top just to make sure I minimize any chance of like eyeshadow creasing or slipping throughout the day. So tapping this in, also with my N16, bringing it all up and out, up towards my brow bone, everywhere. You want to put this everywhere, or at least blend it up and out. And you'll notice too, like a lot of tapping and pushing. I like to really push products onto my skin for like longevity. Pushing products and not loosely buffing is gonna be what you wanna do. Okay, so now that's on, I'm gonna take the lightest shade in the Charlotte Tilbury Flawless Airbrush Powder. I have the minis. I keep those for my personal use. I have the full sizes in my kit. However, I'm not going to use them when I have these right here. So I'm actually going to take my Angie Hot Flashy. It's the A506 brush. I've been using this for some powders, so it's readily available. I'm going to grab this. Before I set this, I'm going to just buff out creases really quick with the brush I want to keep for my cream products. And then I'm going to use this as my powder brush to lock in both of those cream products really, really well. So I'm tapping this in and I'm pressing this in. Now the reason why I'm choosing this powder and not necessarily loose powder is because the loose powder, it would almost do too good of a job setting my eyelids, which believe it or not, I don't want to do. I want to still have a little bit of grip for when my eyeshadows go on top. Whereas if I went in with like, let's say my Givenchy or like my Cupcake from Huda Beauty, like two of my all-time favorite powders, those are such smoothing powders that I'm gonna have to build up the intensity of my eyeshadows a little bit more than I want to. It's kind of hard to explain, but if you know, you know. So I'm gonna put these down. I'm gonna now reach for the powder bronzer that I plan on using much later in this tutorial. It's gonna be the Westman Atelier. This is the Beauty Butter Bronzer in the shade Coupe de Soleil. So, Coupe de Soleil? Coupe de Sol? I don't know. I always butcher these words. I'm gonna grab my N13. No surprise, it's my ultimate blending brush with BK Beauty. I love this brush so much. So the reason why I wanna use this bronzer first is because, first of all, it's gonna go with the rest of my makeup. And it's gonna give me a nice neutral, warm tone base to then add my other shadows on top. And the reason why I also wanna show you and mention this product is because the palette that I'll be using for this springtime bride is none other than this absolutely stunning I Need a Nude palette from Natasha Denona. So although this palette is absolutely positively one of the most stunning palettes I've ever had in my possession, it doesn't have what I want to start this makeup look with. And what I start almost every single eye makeup look with is a warm tone, neutral brown, much like a bronzer. So your bronzers are your best friend as your transition shade, as your first shade to get a look kind of up and off the ground and started. Use your bronzer. So this is one of my tricks I use on my clients pretty much every day. Every client that I work with, I do this trick. I always use a bronzer first as my transitional shade because there's something very subtle, but there's something about once you go in with the rest of your makeup, like your foundation, you put your bronzers on top. If you have that matching bronzer, that matching tone coming through your eyeshadow and your eye makeup look, the cohesiveness that it will give your makeup is truly pro-like. So just a little hot tip. So I'm building up this beautiful bronzer. I'm building it up and I'm blowing it out towards the inner part of my nose. It's gonna give me a soft little nose snatch even before I go in with the rest of my foundation. So it's gonna look a little funky at first. Don't worry about it. Makeup's a process. Building and smoking out just like that. Bronzer is on. We've established somewhat of a base look. Now we get to dip into the gorgeous I Need a Nude palette. I'm gonna grab a clean N13 brush and we're gonna dip into the first shade. And the first shade that we're gonna work with is gonna be Wit. So Wit is this beautiful shade right here. We're just gonna be using a little bit of this. I don't want this to take over the look and make it too blush tone, but I do think in terms of like a spring bridal makeup look, that man, this palette is just a must. If you're a bridal makeup artist and you do, you know, seasonal bridal makeup looks, obviously, you know, if you're a bridal makeup artist, you're doing every single season. I think that this would be just the #1 staple for a spring bridal makeup look. It just has spring grin all over it. These soft tones, they're a little bit more on the neutral, leaning cool side. In fact, there's a lot of cool tone shades in this palette, which is why, again, I threw on that bronzer first. So I'm working this in the outer corner of my eye first. So I like to start always where I want the product to be more saturated and more impactful. I like to start the application in those areas and then blend inward where I want it to be gradually softer. So blending now into the crease. So starting at the outer corner, this is gonna be more of a classic structured bridal eye, meaning we're gonna do lighter on the eyelids, medium tones in the crease, and then we're gonna build up the intensity on the outer corner of the eye. That's just a really flattering way to wear your eye makeup on most eye shapes. It's really flattering, and especially if you're a bride, that's like the classic layout for an eye makeup look. So again, just building it up, taking my time. The eye makeup is really gonna take majority of the time. That's also one of the most important steps. So, okay, now we're gonna dip into the next shade that's very similar but has much more of a mauve shift to it. This is the shade Vague. Same brush. I'm gonna start to layer this tightly into the crease. Same brush. We're gonna now dip into just a little bit of silhouette, just a small amount. We're gonna tap off the excess and use this very, very sparingly until we get towards the eyeliner look. So I just wanna add this for a subtle hint of more depth and more smokiness in this outer corner of my eye. Okay, so now that's on, we're gonna start to build up the brightness on the actual eyelid. I'm gonna switch to a 209 brush from BK Beauty, and we're gonna start to dip into a little bit of Fair, this more matte beige shade. Tap off the excess. We're gonna start in a pressing motion. Pressing this onto the eyelid, checking for evenness. Just make sure these are somewhat symmetrical. Remember, your eyes are sisters, not twins, so don't beat yourself up if you can't get them completely symmetrical. Now we're gonna dip into probably my favorite shade in this palette, and I'm going to actually use my fingertip. My nails are just barely, they're almost too long to be doing this technique, but we're gonna make it work anyway. So we're gonna dip into the shade Sheen. Sheen is just that beautiful, shimmering champagne shade that I think is always so suitable for most brides. So I'm gonna use my fingertip, and we're gonna layer this right on top of that lighter shade that we placed earlier. The reason for the lighter shade underneath is because this is a more sheer shadow. There's not a lot of pigment in it. It's more of like a sheer shimmery wash of color. So I want it to still be really bright. So I use that lighter shade underneath first to make it stand out and be a brighter tone. But this palette and this shimmer is just absolutely gorgeous. And I think I'm gonna have to switch to a more dense brush because my finger is just a little bit, my nail is a little too long. Okay, so going back to the 209 from BK Beauty, I'm gonna actually spray this brush first really quick with a little bit of the Charlotte Tilbury Flawless Airbrush setting spray. Probably my #1 setting spray of all time. I'm gonna go back to the same shade, Sheen, and we're gonna layer some more on top. Okay, the shimmer is finally done. It's lots of layering. Now we can move on to eyeliner. We'll be using the Patrick Ta, I always forget the name of this one. It's the Precision Gel Eyeliner. This is the shade Deep Bronze. We're gonna be applying this first and we'll be layering a darker shadow on top to lock it in, to make sure it is nice and set and for longevity. This pencil on its own is very long wearing. However, it's a gel. Any pencils, especially on your wedding day, if you're a bride, make sure you or your artist is setting them into place with a like-minded shade and a powder, because that's what's going to keep them on all day through tears, sweating, you know, hours and hours of wear time. So we're going to start with this beautiful pencil first. We're going to go for a classic bridal wing liner. So starting in the outer corner of my eye first, I'm going to map out the wing and then taper it to be much thinner as I get to the inner corner of my eye. So you do want to work quickly with this pencil. It does dry down very fast. I'm going to grab really quickly my N12 brush. This is my ultimate smudger brush, and it is called that for a reason because this will smudge out any formula eyeliner. I love a good wing liner for a bride. I just love it. Before I set this, I'm gonna let it dry down. I'm gonna go back to the same pencil from Patrick Ta. We're gonna repeat the same step on this eye. And like I always say, if you're doing eyeliner, especially a wing liner, try to keep your eyes open. If you have hooded eyes or if you struggle with making your eyes symmetrical, or just struggle with your eyeliner placement in general, looking straight into a mirror as opposed to closing or looking down will give you the best perspective and it'll give you the best outcome because you'll know exactly where you're placing it as you're placing it, and it takes the guesswork out. I'm gonna grab that N12 brush right away and smudge that out. And, you know, for a bridal makeup look, you don't have to go for a wing liner. However, I've always thought that wing liners, whether they're a sharp, crisp black wing liner, like a very classic style, or if they're smudged out and a little bit more smoky, wing liners just translate so well on camera and they're so flattering, and I think they're just such a classic way to wear your classic eyeliner style to wear on your wedding days. Okay, now that our wing liner is smudged out, we're gonna now set it, same brush, the N12 brush. We're gonna dip into the shade Silhouette, this dark, deep brown, and we're gonna lock this liner in so it does not budge. So I'm gonna start with a tapping and pressing motion first. Now that we have the wing liner on, it's time to clean it up. This is my favorite, one of my favorite steps in the whole process of any makeup look. If I'm doing a wing liner, this is just one of my favorite processes to do. It's very rewarding, very fun. I'm gonna take a pointed Q-tip with one of my favorite micellar waters. It's the Garnier Micellar Cleansing Water. It's the 4-in-1 waterproof. This is gonna make it easier to take down and to clean up this very waterproof eye makeup look. So I'm gonna dip my Q-tip into the micellar water. I'm gonna wipe off the excess so it's not dripping and running. So I wanna have more control. So it's just barely damp, basically. And I'm gonna look straight into my mirror. Now this is where you really wanna take your time and be very careful. Don't rush through this process because the cleanup is what's going to shape and really define your wing liner. So take it slow, make sure you're looking directly into the mirror and not down, and you'll get the perfect wing. Now we're gonna tightline just a bit on the top lash line with the Laura Mercier pencil. This is in the shade Espresso Brown. So I'm gonna tightline the top lash line and get this as close to my lashes as possible. Working quickly, I'm gonna grab my N11 brush. This is my ultimate angle brush. Go back to Silhouette, that dark, dark brown. We're gonna use this to lock in this tightlining. This is where you have to be very, very careful, okay? So can't really talk for this part, but I'm going to just basically press this onto the tight lining. Even my eyes can't handle too much going on the inside of my eyes. Kind of moving on to mascara, and to keep it true to what I would actually recommend for a real bride. Clearly I'm not a real bride right now. I've already been married for 5 years. But if I was doing my bridal makeup right now, I would be using a waterproof mascara. Truth be told, the only waterproof mascara that I have personally that is not in my pro kit, the one I use in my pro kit is the YSL Lash Clash in waterproof, and that never fails me. That is a fantastic waterproof formula. I highly recommend that one. The one I'll be using is from Wayne Goss. It's not my favorite one, to be honest, but it's waterproof and I want to keep this very authentic to what I would recommend. So if you are a bride, do not skip waterproof mascara, because the chances of, even if you're not going to cry, even if you're not like a big crier, you don't plan on getting emotional, which would be a huge accomplishment in itself on your wedding day, the chances of regular mascara even just running while you're laughing, smiling, and you gain that transfer is very, very likely. So I still always recommend waterproof mascara, even for the brides that say that they're not going to cry. it's still just a really safe measure to make sure you don't have that runny mascara look throughout the day and the night. So applying this more towards the root of my lashes, not focusing on the tips of my lashes because I don't want them to be spidery before I put my false lashes on top. Just kind of getting the roots, getting a nice base layer on, just like that. Now we're gonna go immediately into some lashes, and the lashes that I have picked out for this tutorial are gonna be so beautiful. They're so soft, they're so fluttery. They're from Swede. They're the no lash clusters. Now these are in the medium length and they're just so soft. Normally I do individuals and that's normally what I recommend for all my brides. But if you were wanting to do something just a little bit more fluttery, these clusters are absolutely gorgeous. And they're very, very thin. They're very lightweight. They're not gonna add a heaviness or like that weighed down effect to your eyes, which is something I always recommend. If you're a bride, you never want to go too heavy with your lashes because it will really alter your appearance and it can make you look very sleepy in your photos, which is the last thing you want. So I'm going to start with the shorter length first and then work my way out towards the longer length. So I'm only going to actually use one of the longer length in this cluster set, just on the outer, very, very outer corner of each eye. So taking my tweezers, I'll be using the Velour Lash Glue, and let me lean in for this. Now what I like to do is actually place that outer corner lash a little bit higher than it naturally should go because you want to go on an upward angle to follow the direction of your wing liner. So that way, when you're taking photos, you're not gonna have anything bringing down the corner of your eye. This is really, really important. So we lean in a little bit closer and you can kind of push them up as the glue is drying down. So just like that, like a little scoop up. Once that most important one is on, now I'm gonna go in with the shorter lengths and finish this whole side. Now, since I wanna keep my eyes looking nice and big and open, I'm not gonna bring the lashes further in than what they are right now because if I did, it would actually just close up my eye shape especially and make my eyes look a little bit smaller, and this will keep them nice and open and a little bit more like bright-eyed. So focusing the lash heavily on the outer portion of my eye, following the shape and the curve of that wing liner, it just complements it so much more. Okay, lashes are gonna dry down. I can breathe again. It's always difficult, even for me as like a pro makeup artist. It's hard for me to get lashes on myself. Other people, no problem. So let's finish up these brows. I'm gonna go in with my Anastasia Beverly Hills Brow Freeze Gel and brush my brows up into place. This is a really great product, especially for a bride if you want your brows to stay put through anything. Absolutely anything. This product is just, the long-lasting hold that it gives is exceptional. It's one of the best ones I've ever tried, and I've tried so many different brow gels, like laminating gels. And even if you don't want a laminated effect, if you're a bride-to-be, it doesn't matter. It's still going to just keep your brows in place and keep them groomed and in one direction, no matter what, like all day long. I do suggest applying this before you put your foundation on though, because it can be a little messy. So you'll see I'm kind of like rubbing off little bits where it kind of balls off and balls up and just rubbing it off my skin. And if you had foundation on first, it would be really messy and it'd be really hard to clean this up and to wipe off the excess. So I'm gonna do this first. I'm gonna let this fully dry down. I'll probably do my foundation and all that stuff. And then I'll go in and paint in some tiny hair-like strokes with my Build-A-Brow from Maybelline. All right, so let's let that dry down completely. Now, the final true step before foundation is doing a little bit of primer. I always say there's a time and a place for primer, and your wedding day, if you're a bride-to-be, that time and that place is now. One of my all-time favorite primers. It probably is my all-time favorite, but I don't want to be so specific because I do like other primers as well. But this one I've been using for years and years and years. I highly recommend it if you plan on taking photos. This will give you such smooth, flawless skin. So it's the Smashbox, the original photo finish. It's a smoothing and blurring primer, and boy does it do that. So we're gonna take a small amount. You don't need a lot on the tip of my fingers. It's very thin. Feels like nothing on, which I really like. I'm gonna smooth this all over my cheeks, all over my nose. I'm gonna work it onto my chin. I always say focus on the T-zone because that's usually where we need the most smoothing and the most longevity. That's where we have larger pores typically. And that's generally speaking where our makeup tends to kind of wear a little bit and look a little worn throughout the day. So once that's on, we're gonna go right into foundation. One of my all-time favorite foundations, especially if you're a bride or if you just need something that's going to be long-lasting, it's gonna withstand the elements. The Dior Backstage Face and Body. And yes, you can use this on your face and your body. I use this all the time on chests, necks, anywhere that needs a little bit of evenness, some coverage that's long lasting. So this is a water resistant formula. It's extremely long wearing. It is sweat and humidity resistant. Key things, key factors that you should consider when you're choosing your foundation for your wedding day. This is one of my top winners. So it's also really easy to match They have a huge variety of shades to choose from. The shade that I'm going to be applying is 2.5W. So I'll be applying this, of course, with my N17 brush with BK Beauty. And I always say start where you need the most coverage. For me, that's in the center of my face. This foundation not only photographs beautifully, like I mentioned, the wear time is outstanding, but it also just looks like skin. It has a very smooth, very skin-like finish, which for a bride, you don't want to look like, you want coverage. You want to be flawless, but you don't want to look like you have a lot of coverage on. Like you had to like put a lot of foundation on to get a flawless finish to your skin. So this gives you like the best of both worlds. It will give you amazing coverage. It's extremely buildable, making it very, very versatile from bride to bride. So depending on like the level of coverage you need, this foundation will give it to you. Now, I want you also kind of take notice of the application. I like to really push the foundation onto my skin. This ensures that it's really gripping to my skin. It's really going to be long wearing. It's not just going to slide around. You don't want to just kind of buff it on all loosey-goosey. You want to like push it onto your skin with a little bit more force than you normally would. But look at this. I mean, it's so smoothing. It's so flawless. I'm always shocked when I talk to like other makeup artists who haven't used this foundation because in my opinion, it's probably one of the easiest foundations to color match, to blend on, to work with, and it works with all skin types. Now, I love to use the tip of my N17 brush where both fibers, the dark fiber and the lighter fiber, meet in the middle. This gives you an ultimate blend. These two mixed together for buffing is just a game changer. Makes it so easy. So this is where you want to go in now and really fine tune. So I like to get right up by the ears. If not, depending on the bride, if you have more red ears, if your ears tend to get red throughout the day, I get red ears all the time. So I would suggest putting a little bit of foundation on your ears, especially if you're doing an updo. Make sure you're tackling your ears and you're not just leaving them hanging, so to speak. Make sure you put a little bit of makeup on them. It sounds crazy. Trust me, you do not want to look like you have red ears in your photos. So just dabbing a little bit of foundation, doesn't have to be a lot, on your ears is, I think, a crucial step not to forget. Same goes with your neck, same goes with your chest. My neck is barely exposed, my chest is obviously not exposed. If I were a bride that had an exposed neck and chest, you better believe that makeup would be going all the way down, staying clear of the dress, but make sure you want to have the whole even picture on your wedding day. So always make sure you take into consideration the whole picture. I love this foundation so much. Okay, foundation is done. Now we're gonna go on to cream, bronzer, or contour. I'm not going to be contouring my face necessarily, but I do want to warm it up. I do want to give it some soft sculpting effect. And for that, I'll be using one of my favorites and one that I think is a great, great formula, easy to work with, looks smooth, long wearing, checks all the boxes. It's the Rare Beauty bronzing stick. It's in the shade Happy Soul. So Happy Soul, one of my favorites. Now for this, I'll actually be using the BK Beauty 107. I love this brush so much. I'm going to be taking the brush to the product, getting a nice generous amount. I'm going to pre-blend it just a touch on the top of my hand, making sure it's nicely evenly distributed onto my brush. So just like this. And now we're going to start to push this onto the high points of my face. Depending on the makeup look that you're going for, I think that having a soft sculpted effect and not necessarily a contoured, chiseled effect is going to be the most flattering on a wedding day, personally. Just my personal opinion. I don't think that you should go crazy or too heavy with the contour. I think that it's all about softly sculpting your features and giving some warmth to your complexion, warming it up, especially anywhere that the sun would actually hit you. So the top of the forehead is always a great spot. You want to have that warmth and that softness and not necessarily be too harshly defined and chiseled. So I'm not a huge contour person when it comes to someone's wedding day. If I get requested, if someone is requesting for me to do it, then absolutely, but I'm not trying to alter people's features entirely. I'm just trying to softly sculpt them. So that's the idea behind this right now, is just softly sculpting my features, getting some soft definition, pushing it onto my skin, not rubbing back and forth, because if I rub back and forth, I would disrupt that makeup underneath for sure. Overall too, I think if you're a spring bride, or I mean just a bride in general, but a spring bride especially, I think is just, you want to be a little bit more soft, well blended. You don't want to have any harsh lines on your skin. So same brush, same idea. We're going to sculpt the sides of my nose just for some soft definition. I'm not worrying about being super careful with the placement because I'm going to show you a trick in just a bit on how to clean up and define your nose and give it like a soft sculpted, slightly contoured effect with ease. So you just want to kind of focus on getting the bronzer on your nose, Don't worry about placement too much, like I said. Now that's on, we're gonna go back to the first concealer, the NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer in the shade Honey. This is an important part. I'm not gonna actually color correct under my eyes. However, I'm gonna use a really peach tone concealer like this one in Honey because it's gonna give me a color corrected effect and it's gonna fill in that darkness under my eye, but in a really natural way. So same idea, same principle behind it. We're gonna use this as a color corrector. I'm gonna tap this in with my N14, just like that. And then we're gonna go in again with a brighter concealer this time to actually highlight. Going back to my N16, I'm gonna use this to lift up the outer corner of the eye, go back to the bronzer. It's a lot of layering to get a flawless finish. Okay, now we can go with that brighter concealer that I mentioned. That's gonna be Vanilla Swirl from Huda Beauty. This is the Faux Filter Concealer. This is a fantastic concealer if you want a nice smoothing effect to your under eyes. It is long wearing, easy to work with. It's one of my favorite concealers. So I'm gonna take the doe foot applicator. So you'll notice I'm avoiding the center part of my eye right here. I don't wanna have too much product here because that's where you're gonna get a lot of creasing. So I apply the concealer first. I'm gonna let it dry down a bit while I go in on the side. And then we're gonna do 2 rounds of blending. And you'll notice too, I'm bringing this concealer now officially along the side of my nose. It's gonna give me a very natural contoured effect. Going back to my N16 brush, I'm going to take the tip of the brush, pick up a little bit of product, and this is where I have to look straight ahead. I'm going to highlight in between the brows and then top of the chin. I love to do the very top of the chin, a little bit underneath the nose because we get a lot of shadowing going on right here. And now we're going to start our blending, but we're going to use tapping motions first to really lock this concealer into place so it doesn't move around too much in areas that we don't want it. And then once we have that rough blend down, we're gonna let this dry down more and self-set. So it's like 2 rounds of blending. And what this really does too is it gives you the longest wear time. It gives you the most coverage as well. So if you want to maintain the coverage, you don't want to blend and buff it away, absolutely use this technique. So tapping it in. And now one trick I love to do is highlight the outer corner of the bottom lip. Give a little lift up. As this dries down a touch more, I'm gonna go in with one of my favorite products of all time, especially if we're talking about bridal. It is the Hollywood Flawless Filter from Charlotte Tilbury. These are the minis, that's why it's a cute little petite size. They're just really small and handy to carry around, especially in your makeup kit. This one's mine. This is in the shade 4.5. I'm gonna run this in between. Now what this is really gonna do is bridge the gap in between the contour and that brighter concealer so it's not such a huge stark difference. You want it to all blend together and be nice and like more cohesive. You don't have any like hard edges or anything that's too severe. So going back to my N17, using the lighter fiber side, this has a teeny bit of foundation left over on it, which is totally fine. I'm gonna tap this in to just bridge the gap between those 2 worlds so they just make more sense, they're more cohesive. But bonus point is this gives you the most flawless finish to any areas of your face. It photographs unreal beautifully, like unreal. And it gives a subtle glow. So you'll see like I already have like a nice little built-in highlight now. It looks very skin-like. Oh, this stuff is a must. This is like the must-have product for brides, in my opinion. So tapping this on to this area, and it's basically gonna help to blend the rest of that concealer in those areas. And now I'm tapping in between, again, meeting in the middle where the foundation, the highlight, and the bronzer is. So it's nice and seamless. There's no harsh edges to anything. With whatever's left over, I like to go in and further tap in the complexion products, really making sure that they are locked into the skin and just not going anywhere. Now enough time has passed. I'm gonna go back to my N14 brush. It's a little magic wand right here. I love this brush so much. I'm gonna take this and start to tap in the rest of the concealer that we left on the sides of the nose. And now that it's dried down a lot, it's not moving all over the place, we have a lot of control. And bonus points, you'll have to use a lot less powder to lock it into place because it's already dried down a lot. So you're not putting powder on top of a really wet concealer, which is gonna be way easier for you, for anyone. Now, when I think of a cream blush for a bride, or just in general, one of my favorites of all time has got to be Westman Atelier Petal. We're gonna take Petal. I'm going to deposit a whole bunch on the top of my hand. We're gonna warm up this product. I'm going to go back in, once again, with my N17, same brush. We're gonna dip into Petal, and we're gonna start to blush this up. Blush is one of the most crucial parts of a bridal makeup look, in my opinion. And blush has to be in layers because blush is one of the first things to go and first things to disappear on anyone, but especially on a bride. There's something about the wedding day that you just need more and more blush because A, the camera washes it out, B, the elements usually wash it out, and it's just one of those things that just doesn't last as long as you would hope it would. So I'm doing a more sculpted but still soft look with this blush. I am going on to the apples. I'm not just doing the apples. I'm pretty much getting the entirety of my cheek. I think this is a really soft, romantic way to wear your blush, especially if you're a springtime bride. Just getting it all over, pushing it onto my skin with my N17. Now we are gonna layer this and kind of sandwich it with a powder blush to lock it into place so it lasts all day. You never wanna just do cream blush and that's it. You wanna always do, just like with your eyeliner, it's the same exact principle, same idea. If you're using a pencil eyeliner, you wanna set it and lock it in with a like-minded powder. So just tapping it in, focusing somewhat on an upward angle just to give me a nice lightly sculpted effect. Again, very, very flattering for most face shapes too, I should mention. Now, if you were a bride and you were wanting your face to look more full and you wanted your cheeks to appear more full and round on your wedding day, then you would actually want to focus on the apples of your cheeks. Okay, now for a touch of extra warmth, I always like to take whatever is left over, just lightly dab it across the forehead. It may not seem like it's doing anything, but it's adding a little bit more like vibrancy and warmth to your skin. Cream blush is done. We're gonna start to now lock in this makeup look. And for that, no surprise here, I'm gonna be using the Givenchy Prism Lead Powder in the shade 3. This is like the more pink shade. I'm gonna tap this into my cap. This is my powder, and we're gonna start in light layers, okay? This is very, very important too. So first things first, before you set your under eyes, you wanna make sure you go back in with whatever concealer brush you're using. I'm gonna grab my N16 brush, use the longer fibers on the tip to buff out these small little creases I have right under my eye. You almost wanna set each eye at a time. So I'm gonna go in right away on this eye. I'm gonna just blend this out one more time. I'm gonna grab a clean N14 brush. This is my favorite brush for setting the under eyes. I'm gonna pick up a lot of powder, but I'm gonna leave it in the palm of my hand. So I'm gonna pick up a lot of powder, work it into my brush, tap off the excess, pat this beautiful, blurring, flawless powder under my eyes. I'm also going to line this up on the side of my nose, and we're gonna also put this anywhere we have larger pores, maybe some skin texture, anywhere we want some extra smoothing, because look at the difference that just made. You wanna make sure you get all up in there under your eyes. So same thing on this side, but I'm gonna go one more time, buff out creases, because once you set them with powder, they're there to stay. They're not going anywhere. Looking way up. I always tell my clients and my brides to look way, way up so I can really get this powder in all the areas I need to set. Taking more now, I'm going to set and lock in any areas in my T-zone. I know this is optional, but I love and I highly recommend this if you are prone to creasing or if you're prone to your makeup just moving around in this area. Take some more powder. I'm going to show you how to do a mini bake. I'm going to deposit an extra bit of powder along the side of my nose like that. Now while that's doing its thing, we get to now start the process on the bottom lash line. Going back to the Westman Atelier bronzer, my N12 brush, that's right, we're going to do the same shades we did on the crease of the eye on the bottom lash line because you need balance. Now this is something that I always recommend. It just really completes the look and it opens up your eye. It just defines them even more and it makes them look bigger. So I never skip this step on any of my clients or brides. I love using any bronzer, whatever bronzer I'm using on them, the powder bronzer that is, and sculpting and shading on the bottom lash line with a small brush like my N12. And this just gets in there and softly defines your eyes. It just really gives them that complete look. It's like that finishing step that you don't know you need until you do it and then you're like, oh wow, this really made a huge difference. Okay, now going back to that Natasha Denona, I need a nude palette, same N12 brush. I'm gonna dip into just mixing these two shades, Vague and Wit. And we're gonna repeat the same process on the bottom lash line. Now, last but not least, the tiniest bit of that dark brown shadow, just for a little minor shading, just like that. Now, one technique I always love to do, especially if I have a bride who has more like red or allergy prone eyes, or just if they're prone to allergies in general, is taking a skin tone eyeliner. This is coconut. I use this all the time. I love coconut from Sephora. I know I talk about this a lot, but it's just a great pencil and it's really, really affordable and it's very long wearing. So coconut eyeliner, we're gonna use this on the bottom lash line. Make sure this is nice and cleaned off. That just instantly eliminates a lot of visible redness. So if you have red eyes, and if you want to open up your eye shape even more on your wedding day and really have your eyes pop, then this is a great, great trick to do. Don't skip this step, basically. So impactful, so nice. Okay, then now that that is on, we are going to use a powder highlighter. I want to use a powder highlighter first, and then we're going to top that with a powder blush in a like-minded shade as the cream blush we used earlier. But I like to use like more of a sandwiching technique with highlighters, especially powder highlighters, because they can be a little bit more detectable on your skin, and they can just kind of show up a little like I don't want them to look like they're basically, I don't like them to look like they're sitting on top of your skin. I want them to look rather like they're melted into your skin and they're giving a glow from within look rather than sitting on top. So, long story short, I like to sandwich my highlighters. This highlighter is a beautiful powder highlighter. It's the Charlotte Tilbury Glow Glide Face Architect Highlighter in the shade Pillow Talk Glow. That is a mouthful. N17, I'm going to flip it to the powder side, dip into this very intense highlighter, tap off the excess, and pat this onto all of the high points of my cheeks. Now, I'm not using a liquid highlighter. It's just not necessary. I have that Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Flawless Filter popping through. That's acting as my liquid highlighter. This is acting like my powder highlighter to lock it into place. So same idea. And that looks so pretty too. If you get a good powder highlighter that doesn't accentuate texture, large pores, or fine lines, then it's all good. You don't have to worry about it. I know there's a little bit of like, some people are afraid to use powder highlighters because they definitely can accentuate texture in certain skin. This one I feel like has a really nice smooth effect to it. So I'm carefully placing this. You want to get that little spotlight right here. How pretty is that? So in photos, that highlighter picks up the light and it's just stunning. It's absolutely stunning. I'm going to squeeze my N17 brush a little bit more, pick up more highlighter, and this is where I'm going to pinpoint highlight the top of the tip of my nose. Okay, the top of the tip of my nose, and then I'm going to leave the center of the bridge bare. You don't want to look like you have a landing strip of highlighter, especially in photos on your wedding day, so you want to leave the center bare. It's too much, in my opinion, to go straight down. Instead, I like to pinpoint, do the very tip in an upward angle. That's also a great way to give your nose a little more lifted effect in case you're wanting to do that. And also in the very center of the top, it brings your focus back to like your eyes, and it just brings the focus to this part of your eyes even more. And it's just beautiful when it catches the light in photos. With whatever's left over, hit the highest points of the top of your forehead. So right there, you see that? Right there. Like the peak of your forehead, basically. So pretty. Same can be done on the sides of your chin. So when you hit the side, you get that profile shot in the sun, and that flash photography is hitting you, you're gonna get all the high points of your face. So another trick that I love to do, more highlighter right in this inner corner of your eye. Oof. When that flash hits you, you're gonna be a glowy goddess. So pretty. Now, same technique. I know, we're getting there. It's a long process. I'm gonna grab a BaeBrow 207, same highlighter, just pop a little bit of that highlighter in the tear duct of your eye, but bring it further out along the side, right there. So not where it's obvious, not like in this inner part. You don't want to end up with a shimmery, like, sorry to say this, but a shimmery eye booger. That's exactly what's going to happen if you place this highlighter too close to the actual inside of your tear duct. Instead, you want to place it and trick the eye and make your eyes look even more open and even wider and brighter. So right in this little socket. We all have a little socket right here. You want to kind of blend it right in there. Okay. We need to finish these brows. I'm gonna be adding a little bit more of that waterproof mascara just at the root of the bottom lashes. And if you're going to do bottom mascara, make sure you're knocking the tips of your lashes, because that is when trouble starts. That is when you get that transfer going on. So even if you accidentally hit the tips of your lash, go over and just kind of graze over them with your finger. Pick up that excess product. So there's nothing on the tips. It's just kind of lightly on the root of the lashes, just to add a little bit more definition, a little bit more of like a sultry effect. So now I'm going to quickly finish up my brows with my Build-A-Brow from Maybelline. This has been my favorite brow product ever. Now that my Anastasia Brow Freeze is totally dried down, I'm going to use this to apply hair-like strokes to my brows, giving them more of a natural but filled-in effect. Okay, the time has come to start layering our setting sprays. So first I'm going to just dust off that excess bake that we have going on with my N14. And now we're gonna go in with our first round of setting spray. And I say first because there's gonna be 2 setting sprays involved. Both are crucial for longevity. I like to use a more wet setting spray first to just lock in all this makeup, to get some extra glow, and to take away that powdery finish that we have going on right now. So this is the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Setting Spray that I used earlier. This is like my #1. I love this stuff. So I'm gonna shake this up first and get a good all over mist on my skin. Whew, dry this down. Now that's on, we're gonna go in with some more powders. Yes, I know. More powders. Longevity is the name of the game when it's bridal. So I'm gonna be grabbing my N15 brush, this is my powder brush, going back to that Westman Atelier Butter Bronzer. Now, this is where we set and lock in that cream bronzer we used way, way earlier. The one thing I love about this bronzer, or one of the things I should say that I love about this bronzer, is it has a very smoothing effect to it, and it doesn't look heavy or feel heavy on your skin. So going in, locking this cream bronzer properly into place. This will also, of course, intensify the pigment a little bit more too. It's going to bring it out a little bit more. A little bit on the tip of my nose and just a touch along the side of my cheek. I'm not buffing, I'm not swiping back and forth. I'm being really careful with my technique and application and pushing this onto my skin. With whatever's left over, you can kind of lightly sculpt underneath your jaw, depending on like what look you're going for. If you need to contour it, go for it. Again, but only do it if it's necessary, because the last thing you want is a line of gray or bronzer on your jawline in photos, and especially in person on your wedding day. So now that that is done, I need to grab a tissue. We're gonna do some important stuff next. Some lips. Blotting off all of that lip balm. It has done its job. It was there for us when we needed it. Now we don't need it. Now our lips are plumped, they're hydrated, and they're very, very smooth. So now we get to go in and do some sculpting, my friends. To sculpt, N12 brush, powder bronzer from Westman Atelier, and we are going to do a little bit of shading on the lip, creating a small shadow on the bottom lip. This will help with symmetry if you have a symmetrical problem with your lips, if your lips are not symmetrical, I should say, like mine. And this is where you can kind of manipulate the shape and make them look bigger. This is a major like J-Lo secret. She always has her artists do this to her lips. A little bit goes a long way. I especially love to fill in the Cupid's bow. This will actually give your top lip a little lift up. It's very subtle, however, very, very impactful. All right, one round is done. We are going to go in now with one of my favorite formula lip liners, and also Makeup by Mara just has some incredible shades in lip liners. This is the shade Hue. I love Hue. This is like my second one I've gone through. I love the shade Hue. It is a perfect, soft, springtime bride type lip liner. If you're my skin tone, a little bit lighter, a little bit deeper, Hue is gonna be a really beautiful option for you. So I had to stop talking for a minute because this is very important. So looking straight into my mirror, I'm gonna close my lips and lightly smile. Now, one trick I love to utilize, especially for bridal season and for brides, is filling in the lip lightly, shading it with the lip liner. So I'm gonna flip it to the side and I'm gonna run a small, thin amount all over my lips. What this is gonna do is act like a base, and it's gonna act like a primer for the lipstick to just stay on longer. So this is a really great trick to utilize if you are a bride. Now, for extra security for the bride, your lip is the first thing that goes, and it's the first thing you're gonna have to worry about throughout your wedding day and your wedding night. I love a stain in between. So a good stain, a good formula stain, this one from Alleven is unreal good. You can use it on your cheeks, you can use it on your lips. I love it as a lip stain before I put actual lipstick on top. So now this is in the shade Rose. I'm gonna take a little bit of this stain and apply this all over my lips. It's like same idea as wearing a liquid lipstick. It's gonna give great longevity to your lips. The color is gorgeous for a spring bride, and it's really a classic pink. It's so stunning. You wanna get this all over the inside of your lip. Now, of course, this is mine. That's why I'm using the applicator, just in case that wasn't obvious. Now, while that's drying down, we're gonna go layer the blush. Final step for the blush, okay? I promise you, we're getting there. We're really getting there. But bridal makeup, it's lots of layers. It's lots of thin layers. It's lots of buffing. It's lots of lots of techniques, really. You can't just slap a bridal makeup on and expect it to look beautiful and flawless all day and night. You just can't. It's not realistic. This is why bridal makeup artists charge a lot for what they do. It is a full-time, it's a process. It is a full-on process, and it takes a lot of skill and a lot of patience to do it. So anyway, I'm gonna grab my N15 brush, one of my favorite brushes of all time that I made with BK Beauty. This is amazing for powder blushes. So I'm gonna take my N15, I'm gonna dip into quite possibly one of my all-time favorite blushes for a soft springtime bride. Warm Soul from MAC. It's an absolute must. I'm gonna use a tapping motion, tap this on top. It's gonna further enhance that blush we have underneath, that Westman Atelier. It's gonna complement it. More importantly, it's gonna lock it into place and give us that longevity. Thin, small layers is all you need. Slowly building it up to your liking and what you want, but there's just nothing like a pink, soft pink blush for your wedding day. And it goes perfectly with this eye makeup look too. All right, a little extra on the forehead. Now guess what time it is? It's time for one last round of setting spray. And for that, we're gonna bring out the heavy duty, the serious setting spray. This is like, put your game face on. This is like the serious setting spray that you need, especially if you're a bride or you need your makeup to just stay put. One Size Beauty, On Till Dawn. It's a mattifying, waterproof setting spray. So there's a reason, there's a method to my madness, okay? There's a reason why I go in with this wet one first. This gives glow It doesn't take away glow. It doesn't mattify your skin. It locks your makeup into place, but it also gives a skin-like glow to your complexion. So if you have lots of layers of powder, if you have lots of layers of foundation on like we do right now, this brings that skin-like quality back to your complexion. This is what, it's like hairspray. It like locks it all in. It keeps it from budging. I like to do this before I put my final round of lipstick or lip gloss on, because I don't like the feeling of it sitting on top of my lips once my lips are finally done. So if that makes sense, leave me a comment below. Shake this really well, and this is quite literally like spraying hairspray on your face. It's in an aerosol can. It's intense. Don't open your eyes too quickly, and try not to breathe it in. So hold please. And that's how you keep your makeup on all day, just so you know. That is how your makeup stays on all day. That spray is quite literally a miracle. Final touches for my lip. For my spring bridal lip, I feel like a bride. I actually really do feel like a bride. It's not just because I'm wearing white and I have like quite a bit of makeup on. I feel like a bride. Like a springtime bride. Anyway, I'm getting happy because this makeup look is almost complete and we've been here a long time together. And that's just what it takes for bridal makeup. So without further ado, I have been waiting to apply this for a makeup look for a while, and I thought this would be the perfect video for it. It's from Vive. I love Vive Cosmetics. They're a UK-based brand. It's Jamie Genevieve's brand. She made some amazing products, this included. This is the satin lipstick in the shade 90. Wait till you see 90. Can you tell I love it? I use it a lot. So 90 is like a perfect soft bridal pink, spring bridal pink. Now we're gonna go in there and push this onto my lips. That's 90. Last little steps, going back to hue. It's all about layers. Now, if you're a bride who is brave, let's say you're a bride who's gonna have your hair back on your wedding day, and let's say you just really want a little bit of shine, as an option, I wanna show you what I would recommend in terms of glosses if you were to go so bold as to put a little bit of gloss on for your wedding day. Now, I always just recommend if you're gonna wear gloss on your wedding day, save it for just your photos, like your really important photos, and then blot it off, put your lipstick back on. That way you don't have to worry about your hair getting stuck in it and ruining your makeup or ruining your hair. It's a really dangerous thing, okay? So I only recommend gloss, to be quite honest, for pictures. This is probably my favorite gloss formula of all time. It's the Fenty Beauty Gloss Bomb. This shade is just a perfect shade. It's more sheer. It's got a subtle wash of pink and shimmer. It's the shade Sweet Tooth. Sweet Tooth is a staple in my kit. This is not my gloss, so I will be using it or applying it with a brush. So I'll be applying it with an about face brush, tapping it just in the center. You don't need it all over. You don't need gooping all over the place. If you want to just make your lips look bigger, you just push it there, and that's it. And that is the final step in the spring bridal makeup look.
Now that you got me started, I just can't stop. No, no. 'Cause I love you, baby. I can't let you go, baby. I gotta tell you that I've been looking for love so true. When I was down and down alone.
I hope you all enjoyed this spring bridal makeup look. Leave me a comment if you are a future bride or a bridal makeup artist. If you found my tips and techniques helpful, leave me a comment below. If you like full-on tutorials like this, I have so many more you could check out right here. As always, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you all so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
'Cause I love you.